What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking eForge, and today I decided I was going to make something I found on Pinterest. Yes, blacksmiths do use Pinterest, and surprisingly, there's a lot of projects that you can find on the app that can give you a lot of inspiration for projects if you're feeling, a little uninspired. Because let's be honest, even those of us that do this on YouTube sometimes find ourselves just without any ideas for projects, and going to Pinterest is sometimes one of the best ways to find inspiration. Now the focus of today's video is going to be forging this bottle opener that I found, and all of the credit for this design goes to Black Dog Ironworks on Etsy for putting his phenomenal work out here on Pinterest for me to find. Now, I just decided I wanted to try my hand at forging this style of bottle opener. I've done loop bottle openers in the past and even on a video on this channel, but this design really struck my fancy and I wanted to do it for a different video. So come along for the ride. I hope you enjoy, and let's get rocking. All right, so you can already see that I've got a twist here already in the piece. And that came about from my twist video. If you want to check that out, it'll appear in one of the top corners here. But I'm just going to, instead of doing the ball finial as pictured, I'm just going to do a nice little rat tail scroll as a decorative end to this piece instead of that ball finial. And turn that into a loop or a hook for hanging on a hook or something above the mantelpiece or something to that effect. All right, so I'm starting out that by just doing a slight forward taper here, and then I'm going to offset that by coming to the near edge of the anvil and forge what is left out to a taper, and I'll show you as it goes what I mean by that. So I've offset that to about half the width of the original bar itself, and then forged that back down and started the taper on it during that heat. And the intent for this is to have this forged down to a long taper that I can put a little scroll on and then forge around into a loop that kind of comes back and insets into that little corner. And I really like the way that looks, and that's why I am going with it here. All right, so what I've done here is just done that scroll and kicked that steel off so that I can bend it around the next heat and make it meet up into a nice little tight loop. And in order to do that, I'm just gonna douse the tip of that little scroll in a little bit of water and then use my scrolling tongs to just simply bend this around into the final shape that I want, or close to it, and then I'll ferret it in with the hammer as I get closer to where I want it. And then that ended up a little less kicked off than I wanted, or a little too kicked off rather. And I'm gonna go ahead and make that little loop the top of the handle so that your hand kind of wraps around it like this, and it'll come down to the bottle opener end on this end. So we're gonna spin this around and start working on that bottle opener end. All right, so what I'm gonna start here is just at the tip. I'm going to flatten this down on one side, just kind of a one-sided taper almost, to see the width I get out of it. because it'll widen a ton when I actually punch and drift the hole for the bottle opener. So I'm just gonna kind of feel my way through this. And I'm going to pull this all the way up, and I actually, now that I think about it, I think I want to knock it in these corners before I get too far into this. On the lateral direction or lateral sides of the piece, just to make it a little more comfortable to hold in the future. And as I said, I'm just gonna kind of gently extend this up all the way to that curve, and it wants to twist on me a little bit. There we go, got it controlled this time. And I'm just frequently coming in and trying to make sure that all of these edges and flats end up about the same, so that everything kind of looks pretty uniform. And I'm using my planishing heats here to just kind of even up all of the little ridges and stuff that end up popping up. And I think I'm pretty close in to where I want to get this. I just want to even everything up, kind of let this heat be the last one that I do here. All right, so I'm just gonna clamp this here in my anvil and forget to grab my hammer. And then I'm coming in with a slot punch. This might be even too big, or too wide rather. I think that's too wide. I think I'm gonna use my round punch, normal round punch method. All right, so as I started to say the previous heat, I'm just gonna come in and clamp this using my hold fast on my anvil and come in with my round punch and try to get this as close to center just by eyeballing it as possible. And just start this punching process. Cooling my punch in the water every couple of strikes, just to kind of make sure that I don't ruin the temper there. And come in for another heat. So next, I'm just going to release that, actually get rid of my hold fast altogether here. Pick this up and flatten it out a little bit, and you can see the impression that the punch made. A little off center, but that's okay, that'll even out. And I'm just going to flatten that out a little bit so that I can come back here, hold this between my legs here, and then I'm just going to back punch through here, using the center of that impression as a guide for where to back punch. And I'm just going to use my Pritchel hole to give me room to collect that slug and pull that out. Cool off that tip real fast, and it looks like the temper might be okay, might not be, but that's all right. But as you can see, that's a successful hole that I punched through. Ended up a little off center on that side. So when I come back and drift this, I'm going to cool that side a little bit, which will preferentially force this side to spread a little extra around that drift. And I will show you that in just a second. All right, so what I'm going to simply do here is just bring my water bottle, pour a little water, if I can hit the piece, on that side. Toss my drift in here and drift over the Pritchel hole. And then move to the Hardy hole here as the hole gets wider. And as you can see, I still got quite a bit of stretching on this side of the hole, but it stretched out this side of the hole a little bit more. And I'm going to keep doing that until those sides end up equal. And I'm going to alternate sides here that I use for the drifting so that the marks that you get out of the corners of the Hardy hole get evened out on both sides. There we go. Well, one side looks a little better than the other. But I think you can see that this side is starting to thin down while this side is staying relatively the same thickness. And that's the goal here. And I cooled off a lot more of that than I wanted to, which is why it kind of ended up a little oblong in spots. But that's not going to hurt it. I'm going to do one more drifting heat and just drift the whole thing the same temperature. I'm not going to cool that one side this time, and then I'll take it to the horn after that. Come on. And that ought to be plenty wide to come to the horn and knock in these corners and even out all the steel around the loop or the hole there. And the first thing I'm going to do here is simply just to knock these kind of square corners back in. And without getting it too malformed here, my goal here is to focus my blows on the thickest portion of the loop here to forge down and spread out the loop and widen that out so that it'll actually accept a bottle cap inside the loop. And you don't want to focus your blows all the way around the loop yet, because the thinner portions of the loop are going to get thinner and thinner, while the thicker portions also get thinner at the same rate, but you'll never get it even unless you focus on those thicker portions first. Now don't worry too much about how this looks yet. Biggest thing I'm trying to do is just even out all of that steel so it looks uniform. And I'll focus on the shape later when I come back to it. Now don't forget, as you spread this around on the horn and hammer this back to flat, because it's going to spread this direction a little bit. Let me get the camera closer so you can actually see. As you even the steel up, even the thickness up around this loop on the horn, this loop is going to grow outwards. And I'm sure you can already tell that it is significantly larger than it was, and that is the goal here to an extent, but you can absolutely spread this out far too much and get it to the point where it won't fit over, it'll be too wide to fit over a bottle cap. And we're getting close to that point, and I'll give you a couple of tips toward the end on how to overcome that, even if you do end up with a loop that is a bit too wide. But all in all, I think things are turning out good. I think I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is taking it to the horn and hitting down at an angle in order to knock those corners in and make it a little closer to round. And as I said, I'm just going to bring this at an angle here and use really light overlapping blows to simply just knock those corners in, which you probably can't see through my arm. Mostly because if you end up striking at this angle too hard and this is too wide, you'll actually put a twist in it in the actual loop here as opposed to forging in corners on the outside and the inside. So just use real light blows here, light planishing blows. You can even let it get a little cool and do it this way without too much fear. And this is a good time to even out all of the thickness portions just at the last second. All right, so one of the final steps here is to bring it back to the anvil, clamp it, or leave it free. You don't have to have a hold fast to do this. And then use a ball end punch as close to center as you can eyeball it to punch in that tab. And one of the big things here because you don't want it to go straight down to the edge and ruin the edge, because you want that edge to give you a little bit of a lip. So I started it a little bit too close to the edge, so I'm punching in at a deep angle to try to force that steel to spread without losing the edge on it. And something to remember here too is as you punch in this tab, it's going to widen the arms here of that loop, and it'll make your loop even wider. So if you've already got it just to the point where you can fit it on a bottle cap, when you punch this in, it'll be too wide. And again, I'll give you some tips on how to fix that, or not really fix it, but overcome it and still have a usable bottle opener at the end. As you can tell, I'm angling outward toward the center of the hole here, because I do want that to spread further into the center and give it a little bit of a lip to catch on the underside of a bottle cap. And I'm just trying to even out the size and shape of this to the best I can by angling my punch in the direction I want the steel to move. Now, as you've noticed throughout the video, I've done no measurements to see if that will actually fit on a bottle cap. And it actually ended up pretty nicely shaped, kind of on accident. I usually have to fiddle with the shape of these quite a bit. And I'll go grab a bottle out of my fridge, cool this off, obviously, and then test it on a bottle cap. Now you'll notice, and again, this ended up kind of accidental, but I like it. The body of the bottle opener comes in kind of at this angle, and then the actual loop kind of kicks up from the bottom or the downward side of the handle. And that's something that I like to do, especially when my loops are a little big, is you can give yourself a little bit of an angle here, or I like to take it to the horn and curve it over the horn, but effectively curve it over the edge to give it a little bit of a shape. And if your loop is a little too big, that'll kind of pull the contact point up a little bit and give you a little room to wedge the bottle cap under, or to wedge that on top of the bottle cap and get the actual underside of the bottle cap in contact with that lip you just made. So I'm going to cool this off and go get a bottle, and I'll show you how I deal with it to make sure it fits a bottle. Best way to tell if you've quenched a piece of steel, if it's cool enough for you to touch, is if it stays wet. And that actually ends up pretty well perfect. So the big thing you want out of a bottle opener of this style is that the loop goes over the top of the cap, so that you get a lever action here as you lift up, and that your little dimple, the little tab here, fits underneath the little ridges of the bottle cap, so that you can just pull the cap right off the bottle. Now these are a couple that didn't turn out perfect. This one is just simply really thick. As you can tell, the steel is much thicker than this one. And the key to kind of fixing this issue is to simply just stop once the hole is wide enough to fit over the bottle, and not go any farther to try to thin that down, because that will just grow this wider and wider. Now, if you do end up doing that, one of the other ways you can fix this, and this was a real ugly bottle opener, but one of the ways you can fix this is if you went to the point where it is skinny and way too big to fit over. This one was actually so big it was fitting fully around the bottle cap itself without contacting anything, is to simply take it to the horn and hammer in on this edge, so that it'll still go on top. It'll be a little extra wide, but it won't affect the functionality of the bottle opener itself. So that's a couple of ways that you can fix this process and avoid a non-usable bottle opener that you're trying to sell or use yourself. All right, so one of the last steps I like to do here on most pieces that I make, sometimes I forget, is to simply just touch mark my piece with my logo. Try to get this flush with the surface and as centered as possible. I have a nasty habit of messing this up. But hey, that looked pretty good. And then simply just come at it with a wire brush. This is a Farrier brush. And I will be throwing it back in the fire just to just to come to final shape here. I'll probably do a couple heats. One focused on the shaping the twist here, and then one focused on the rest of it. I'll probably start up here and move to the twist afterwards, and I'll explain why here in just a second. I'm just going to come in here and just do some light bending blows. Kind of concentrate on where I think I want it. A little too much there. And then I'm going to spin this around and use my wood block, or my stump, to bend this section as well, straighten everything out, and we'll be done. And I'm cooling off my scroll and little loop there so that I can just bring this to the stump and hammer down. One, I'm going to use full-faced blows, so to speak, to kind of straighten everything out. And then two, I got a little bit of a curve in there, and I really like the way that looks, so I'm going to leave it like that. The reason I'm using the stump and an old half an axe handle is to avoid messing up hammering down with a steel hammer or on the steel anvil on the edges of this twist and messing that up. And same with the kind of edges that we've developed here on the main piece. But all in all, I really like the way that looks. So I'm going to give that a brush and a nice layer of beeswax, and we'll be finished. Thinking that is a bit too hot. So I'm going to come down here where it's a little cooler, hopefully. I might be looking for a longer stick of beeswax here shortly. Now that it's cooled down a little bit, we're just going to wipe off the excess so it doesn't end up super sticky. And there you have it. Not too bad looking, if I do say so myself. Alrighty, that is going to do it for today's video. If you are inspired to make a bottle opener of this style, please let me know in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell. If you want to support me in the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link is in the description below the video. Or please consider becoming a member of my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking. I knew you guys were gonna complain if I didn't open the beer bottle at the end of the video, so now I'm just stuck drinking a beer. What a shame.